So I haven't spoken to my family in almost 3 years. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the type to cut off family completely. But after what they did to me, yeah. Some background. I'm the middle child of 3 boys. My older brother, Ethan, 32, has always been the golden child who could do no wrong. And my younger brother, Mason, 24, is the baby who gets away with everything. Hey everyone. Before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. I should have confronted them years ago, but honestly, I was trying to rebuild my life, get my credit back on track, move on. But finding out they were telling people I was dead, that was the last straw. By 2 a.m. that night, they were all at my apartment door. Mom, Dad, Ethan, and Mason. Pounding on the door, yelling my name. I didn't answer at first, just sat there listening to them lose their minds outside. Ethan kept saying I needed to give the envelope back, that I was destroying the family. My dad threatened to call the police for harassment. I finally opened the door because my neighbors didn't deserve to deal with their nonsense. The look on their faces when they saw me, almost worth the 3 years of hell they put me through. This is getting long, so I'll save what happened next for an update. But let's just say the family reunion didn't go well for them. Not at all. Update 1. Thanks for all the comments on my last post. Some of you asked for an update on what happened after my family showed up banging on my door at 2 a.m. Honestly, I'm still processing everything that went down that night. So I finally opened my apartment door, and the 4 of them just stood there in the hallway staring at me. My mom tried to push past me into my apartment, but I blocked the doorway. No way was I letting them invade my space after what they pulled. Ethan kept demanding I hand over that envelope while my dad was going on about how I was embarrassing the family. Mason just stood behind them looking uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. I told them they could either talk to me like actual human beings, or they could leave. My dad started saying he'd call the cops for harassment, which was rich coming from the guy pounding on my door at 2 a.m. I just laughed and held up my phone, showing I was already recording everything. That shut him up real quick. They calmed down enough that I let them in, but I made it clear they had 10 minutes before I'd kick them out. My apartment isn't huge, but they all managed to find places to stand awkwardly around my living room. Nobody sat down when I offered. Guess they wanted to make it clear they weren't staying. Fine by me. My mom started with this whole act about how worried they've been about me. She said they only told people I'd passed away because it was easier than explaining the truth, that I'd cut them off and disappeared. Like I didn't disappear. They kicked me out of the family. Then she had the nerve to ask why I would make a scene at their anniversary. I just stared at her for a second before I grabbed a folder from my desk. This was actually a copy of what was in the black envelope. I'm not stupid enough to give them my only evidence. I tossed it on the coffee table and told them to look at it. The folder had everything. Screenshots of text messages between me and Ethan, where he begged me to take out the loan for his gambling debt. Bank statements showing the money going straight to his account. Emails where he promised to make the payments. And the kicker, a signed statement from his ex-girlfriend, Faith, confirming that Ethan had confessed everything to her. You should have seen their faces as they flipped through it. My mom started crying, my dad went completely silent, and Mason looked like he was going to be sick. But Ethan, started claiming the evidence was fake, said I must have photoshopped everything to frame him. Again, that's when I played the recording. See, Faith didn't just give me a written statement. Before she moved across the country, she let me record a conversation where she called Ethan and got him to talk how he'd lied to our parents about me, how he'd never intended to pay back the loan, how he knew exactly what he was doing when he let me take the fall. Ethan went white. Then he lunged at me, grabbed me by my shirt, and slammed me against the wall. I shoved him off hard, and he stumbled back into my TV stand, knocking everything over. My dad and Mason had to hold him back while he was screaming that I was ruining his life. I was done playing nice. I told them the truth. I wasn't there for reconciliation or forgiveness. I wanted justice. I wanted my name cleared. I wanted them to admit to everyone they'd lied about me being dead. And I wanted Ethan to pay back every cent of that loan, plus interest. My dad tried to go into damage control mode, said we could work this out as a family and keep it private. Offered to pay off what was left of my debt if I agreed not to share any of this with anyone else. Said he was sorry for the misunderstanding, but that we needed to protect the family reputation. Misunderstanding. They disowned me, ruined my credit, and told people I was dead. I told them I'd already made copies of everything and sent them to my lawyer. Okay, I don't actually have a lawyer yet, but they don't know that. Said I was giving them exactly 1 week to come clean to everyone they'd lied to, starting with a public post on my dad's Instagram, where he has like 3,000 followers from his business contacts. If they didn't, I'd start sending the evidence to every single person who was at that anniversary party. My mom broke down completely at that point. Started sobbing about how this would destroy them socially, how my dad's business partners would lose respect for him, how Ethan was about to be made partner at his firm, and this could ruin his career, how I needed to consider what this would do to Mason's wedding next spring. I just stood there listening to her cry about how my truth would hurt them. 3 years of built-up anger just came pouring out. I told them they should have thought about consequences when they chose Ethan over me. When they threw me away like garbage. When they literally told people I was dead rather than admit their golden boy had up. Ethan tried a different approach, almost begging me to understand his side. Said he'd been in a really bad place back then. That he'd been planning to come clean eventually but got scared. Said he'd pay me back slowly if I gave him time. Then had the nerve to say that by ruining his reputation, I'd be making it harder for him to pay me back anyway. I laughed in his face, told him I didn't want his money anymore. I wanted him to feel what I felt, to know what it's like when your family turns their back on you, when people look at you differently because they believe lies about you. They left around 4 a.m., with my dad making vague threats about regretting this and my mom still crying. Mason actually hung back for a second and quietly asked if we could talk sometime, just the two of us. I just shrugged, whatever. A week went by. No Instagram post, no public admission, no apology, nothing. So I did exactly what I promised. I started reaching out to their friends and business contacts. I created a new Instagram account and began messaging people who'd been at the anniversary. Then yesterday, I found out my dad was hosting this huge dinner for potential investors in his business. It was happening at the Capitol Grill downtown, the same restaurant where he used to take us for special occasions when we were kids. I put on a suit, walked right in, and spotted their table immediately. The look on my dad's face when he saw me approach, priceless. I introduced myself to everyone at the table as the dead son, and handed out business cards with a QR code linking to a private website where I'd uploaded all the evidence. My dad and Ethan both jumped up, but they couldn't make a scene in front of the investors. I just smiled, told everyone to enjoy their dinner, and walked out. My phone hasn't stopped blowing up since. Text messages, calls, voicemails from family members I haven't spoken to in years. Apparently, the story is spreading fast. My parents' friends are confused and asking questions. Ethan's fiancée is threatening to postpone the wedding. This is just the beginning. I have more planned, much more. Update: 2 things have been absolute chaos since my last update. Honestly, I didn't expect my revenge to blow up this fast, but here we are. The fallout from crashing my dad's investor dinner has been intense. First off, thanks for all the support in the comments. Some of you asked if I felt bad about potentially ruining my brother's engagement or my dad's business deals. Short answer, nope. They spent 3 years telling people I was dead while I struggled to rebuild my credit and my life. They can deal with some uncomfortable conversations. So, the morning after the investor dinner, I woke up to like 20 missed calls and a bunch of texts. Most were from family members who'd been at the anniversary party. My Aunt Liz, mom's sister, actually believed I was dead and thought someone was playing a sick joke when she got my message with the evidence. She called my mom screaming about how up it was to lie about your own son dying. Meanwhile, Ethan's been working overtime trying to do damage control. He made this long BS post on Facebook about how he's deeply concerned about his troubled brother who's fabricating stories because of untreated mental health issues. Said he and my parents have tried countless times to get me help, but I keep refusing. Complete and total. The funniest part? People aren't buying it. His fiancée, Rebecca, actually commented asking why he never mentioned having a brother with mental health issues before. Several of his friends pointed out that he told them I was dead from an overdose. He deleted the whole post after like 2 hours. My cousin Piper sent me screenshots of the family group chat, the one I was removed from years ago. My parents were begging everyone not to engage with me or look at my manipulated evidence. My dad kept saying they could explain everything if people would just stop messaging me. My Uncle Jack straight up asked why they told everyone I was dead, if they were so concerned about my mental health. No one answered him. I got a text from Mason asking if we could meet for coffee. I was suspicious, but figured what the hell. We met at this little cafe near my apartment yesterday. It was weird seeing him after so long. He was still in college when everything went down. He seemed nervous, kept checking his phone. Finally, he admitted that my parents sent him to try to talk me down. They wanted him to convince me to take down my website and stop contacting people. In exchange, they'd pay off the remainder of my loan debt and welcome me back to the family. I laughed in his face, told him I don't want their money or to be part of their family. This isn't about the loan. It's about them choosing Ethan over me, disowning me, and then telling people I was dead. Mason actually seemed to get it. He said he always thought something was off about the story they told him about me. He was only 21 when it happened, and they controlled the narrative completely. He asked if I'd consider coming to his wedding next spring. I told him I'd think about it, but not if Ethan was going to be best man. He didn't say anything to that. As we were leaving, Ethan pulled up in his Tesla. Must have tracked Mason's location or something. He got out and started yelling at Mason for consorting with the enemy. Mason told him to chill out, that we were just talking. Ethan shoved him hard and told him to get in the car. I stepped between them and told Ethan to back off. He got in my face, all red and sweaty, saying I was destroying everything he'd worked for. His fiancée was threatening to call off the wedding. His boss was asking questions about his financial history, and 2 of my dad's investors had pulled out of a deal after seeing my evidence. For a second, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered how he let me take the fall for his gambling, how he watched me lose everything while he kept climbing the ladder, how he helped perpetuate the lie that I was dead. I just smiled and asked how it felt to finally face consequences for his actions. He swung at me right there in the middle of the cafe parking lot. I ducked and he stumbled forward, nearly falling on his face. Several people sitting outside were watching and recording on their phones. Ethan saw them and stormed off, screaming that this wasn't over. That night, someone tried to break into my apartment. I heard them messing with the lock around 2 a.m. I called the cops immediately, but by the time they arrived, whoever it was had left. The officer asked if I had any enemies or people who might want to harm me. I laughed and showed him my website with all the evidence against my family. He actually bookmarked it on his phone. I installed a security camera the next day. That night, my footage caught Ethan trying my door again, this time clearly drunk. I sent the video to Rebecca, his fiancée. She called me crying, asking if the evidence on my website was real. I told her it was, and suggested she think carefully about marrying someone who would lie about his own brother being dead. 2 days later, my dad showed up at my workplace. I was leaving for lunch when I saw him waiting in the parking lot. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. For a second I thought maybe he'd come to apologize. Nope. He said I needed to stop this childish revenge campaign immediately. Said I was hurting innocent people, Rebecca, Mason, my mom. He said I'd made my point, and now it was time to take down the website and stop messaging people. I asked if he was ready to publicly admit that he and Mom had lied about me being dead. He hesitated, then said they could acknowledge that there had been a misunderstanding about my situation. A misunderstanding like they'd gotten my birthday wrong or something. I told him the website stays up until they post a full confession and apology on all their social media accounts. He got angry, said I was being unreasonable, and that I'd always been jealous of Ethan's success, that I was trying to tear down the family out of spite. That's when I dropped the bomb. I told him I knew about the questionable accounting practices at his business. See, before all this happened, I used to help him with his books sometimes. I noticed patterns of missing inventory and cash flow discrepancies that looked a lot like tax evasion. I never said anything because, well, he was my dad. His face went white. He asked what I wanted. I repeated my terms: public admission that they lied about me being dead, public apology, and Ethan pays back every cent with interest. Otherwise, I'd be happy to share what I knew with the IRS. He called me an ungrateful, vindictive little, said I was no son of his. I just laughed and reminded him that according to what he'd been telling people for 3 years, I wasn't his son anymore. I was dead. As he was leaving, he turned back and said my mom was in the hospital. Claimed she'd had a panic attack so severe they had to call an ambulance. Said it was my fault for putting her through this stress. Wanted me to feel guilty. Maybe I'm heartless, but I didn't. Where was their concern when I was couch surfing after they kicked me out? Where was their worry when I couldn't get an apartment because my credit was destroyed? Where was their guilt when they were telling people I died? This morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was my dad's sister, Aunt Carol. She wants to meet tomorrow. She says there's something I need to know about why my parents were so quick to believe Ethan over me. Something that happened before I was born. I agreed to meet her. Not sure what to expect, but at this point, nothing would surprise me. The revenge train isn't stopping. Not until they all feel what I felt. Final update. First, thanks for all the support on my posts. This has been the wildest few weeks of my life, and honestly, it's been helpful to write it all out. Some of you asked for a final update on what happened after Aunt Carol called me. So here it is. I met Aunt Carol at this little diner outside the city. I was kind of suspicious. Half expected my dad or Ethan to show up instead, but she came alone, looking nervous and clutching this old envelope. She ordered coffee but barely touched it, just kept fidgeting with her napkin. She started by saying she'd been following everything that was happening, said she'd seen my website with all the evidence and believed me completely. Then she asked if I'd ever wondered why my parents always favored Ethan, why they were so quick to believe him over me. I shrugged and said I figured it was just typical golden child syndrome. Firstborn son gets all the love. But she shook her head and pushed the envelope toward me. Inside was a paternity test from 30 years ago. My dad wasn't Ethan's biological father. Apparently, before my parents got married, my mom had a brief thing with my dad's business partner. When she found out she was pregnant, she panicked and told my dad it was his. They got married quickly, and Ethan was born 7 months later. Everyone assumed he was just premature. When Ethan was 2, the business partner saw him at some function and noticed how much he looked like him. He confronted my mom, who denied everything, but he threatened to tell my dad unless she got a paternity test. The test confirmed his suspicions. My mom begged him not to tell my dad, said it would destroy their marriage. He agreed to keep quiet on one condition. My parents would name him as Ethan's godfather and give him partial ownership in their new business. They agreed, but my dad found out anyway. He saw the test results in my mom's drawer. Instead of confronting her, he decided to stay for the sake of their reputation in the business. But according to Aunt Carol, he's been overcompensating ever since, spoiling Ethan, defending him no matter what. As if trying to prove to himself and everyone else that Ethan is truly his son. I sat there stunned, asked why she was telling me this now after all these years. She said she'd kept the secret because my dad begged her to. But seeing how they treated me, especially telling people I was dead, was the last straw. She said she couldn't stand by anymore while they destroyed one son to protect another. I took pictures of the paternity test with my phone before giving the envelope back to her. Thanked her for finally being honest with me. She apologized for not speaking up sooner. Said she should have done something years ago when they first threw me out. I left that diner feeling weirdly calm. Everything suddenly made sense. Why my dad always took Ethan's side. Why nothing I ever did was good enough. It wasn't about me at all. It was about my dad's insecurity and my mom's guilt. But I wasn't about to let them off the hook because of some tragic backstory. If anything, this made what they did to me worse. They sacrificed me, their biological son, to protect Ethan and their precious secret. I went home and added this new information to my website, but kept it password protected. Then I texted my dad a screenshot of the paternity test with the password. Told him he had 24 hours to meet my demands or I'd share this final piece with everyone. He called me immediately, voice shaking, kept asking where I got the test, who told me. I didn't throw Aunt Carol under the bus, just said it didn't matter. What mattered was that he'd spent 30 years protecting a lie at my expense, and now he was going to fix it or watch his entire life fall apart. For once, he didn't argue, just asked what exactly I wanted from them. I repeated my terms: public admission, they'd lied about me being dead, public apology, and Ethan pays back the loan with interest. Added a new condition: they had to tell Ethan the truth about his paternity. He deserved to know just like I did. My dad agreed to everything except telling Ethan, said that would destroy him, begged me to reconsider. I told him he had 24 hours to decide. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on my door, checked my security camera. It was Ethan, looking like absolute hell. I opened the door cautiously, ready for him to try to hit me again. Instead, he just stood there staring at me with this lost expression. Asked if I knew. I nodded. He pushed past me into my apartment and collapsed on my couch. Said our parents had called him and Mason over last night and told them everything about his real father, about the deal they made, about how my dad had known all along. Ethan looked broken, not angry, just empty. Said his whole life felt like a lie, that he finally understood why our dad pushed him so hard to succeed, why nothing was ever enough. It wasn't love, it was overcompensation. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered how he let me take the fall for his gambling debts, how he watched me lose everything and did nothing, how he helped perpetuate the lie that I was dead. I told him I didn't care about his identity crisis. He was still the one who ruined my life and let our parents disown me. He nodded, didn't even try to deny it, said he'd been a coward, that when I came to him for help with the loan payments, he panicked. It was easier to let me take the blame than admit he'd messed up again. He pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, and transferred the full amount of the loan, plus 3 years of interest, into my account right there. Said it wouldn't fix anything, but it was a start. Asked if I would take down the website now. I laughed. Told him this was never just about the money. It was about them destroying my life and then erasing me completely. The money was the least of what they owed me. He left looking defeated. 2 hours later, my dad posted a long statement on all his social media accounts. He admitted that contrary to what they had told people, I was very much alive. Acknowledged that they had cut me off 3 years ago over a serious misunderstanding regarding a loan I had taken out to help Ethan. Said they now understood that I had been telling the truth all along, and they deeply regretted their actions and the pain they had caused me. The post blew up immediately. Comments poured in. People shocked, confused, angry on my behalf, friends and family members tagging me, reaching out to apologize for believing I was dead. Ethan's fiancée posted that their engagement was officially over. My dad's business partners commenting that they needed to discuss things privately. My mom was still in the hospital, apparently now for real. According to Mason, who texted me updates, she'd had a complete breakdown after they told Ethan the truth. Mason was staying with her while my dad dealt with the fallout from his public confession. A week later, my parents' anniversary photos still haunted their social media. Everyone smiling, celebrating their perfect marriage that was built on lies. It felt like the final insult. So I did one last thing. I contacted the photographer who'd been at the anniversary party and paid him for the photos he took of me being escorted out. Then, I posted them on my own Instagram with a simple caption. The moment my parents saw their dead son crash their anniversary party, guest reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. The post went viral among our social circle. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, distant relatives, old friends. Everyone wanted to know what happened, why my parents had told them I died. I directed them all to my dad's confession post. 2 weeks later, Mason called to tell me that my dad's business was in serious trouble. 2 major investors had pulled out after the scandal. My dad's business partner, Ethan's biological father, was pushing to buy him out at a fraction of what his share was worth. Said my dad had no choice but to accept if he wanted to avoid bankruptcy. Ethan moved out of state. According to Mason, he couldn't handle the whispers, the questions, the looks from people who'd known him his whole life. He deleted all his social media and changed his phone number, just disappeared. My mom was released from the hospital, but refused to go home. She went to stay with her sister Liz instead. Apparently, she couldn't face my dad anymore. Not after everything that had happened. Their perfect 30-year marriage was over. Last weekend, Mason invited me to his engagement party. Said he wanted me there, wanted to introduce me to his fiancée properly. I was hesitant at first, but decided to go. My parents wouldn't be there. Mason had insisted on separate celebrations for different sides of the family after everything that happened. Walking into that party was surreal. People who'd thought I was dead for 3 years now smiling at me, hugging me, asking how I'd been. No one mentioned the scandal directly, but I could see it in their eyes. The curiosity, the judgment, the pity. Mason pulled me aside during the party, said he was sorry for not questioning our parents' story about me, for believing what they told him. Asked if we could try to have some kind of relationship going forward, just the two of us. I told him maybe, but I needed time. As I was leaving, I ran into my dad's sister, Carol, in the parking lot. She asked if I regretted what I'd done now that I'd seen the destruction it caused, if exposing the truth had been worth tearing the family apart. I thought about it for a moment, about Ethan leaving town, about my parents' failing business and marriage, about all the confusion and pain my reappearance had caused. Then I remembered how it felt to be thrown away by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. How it felt to rebuild my life alone while they told everyone I was dead. How it felt to be erased. I told Carol I didn't regret anything, that I didn't destroy the family. Their lies did that. All I did was refuse to stay dead. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my parents again, or if Ethan will ever come back. I don't know if Mason and I will manage to salvage some kind of brotherly relationship. What I do know is that I'm done being the family scapegoat, done being erased, done carrying other people's secrets and shame. The dead son came back to life, and he's not going anywhere.